Good evening. I want to welcome everybody here to our workshop tonight. For those of you that I haven't yet met, I'm Dr. Johnson. And for any guests that we have joining us tonight, we welcome you and we're glad that you're here. We have 30 minutes together. In that 30 minutes, I have a lot of information to share with you. I'll be sending flyers or handouts home, so you don't need to take notes. I would just ask that you listen with an open mind, take in as much as you can, and then more so, take home and implement some or most or all of this information for yourselves, for your families. You may have neighbors and coworkers that you can share this information with and become a resource for them. So we're going to have a packed 30 minutes of information, and then you'll take a lot of information home with you as well. Now, before we launch into our talk tonight, I have a little bit of a disclaimer that I need to make. Our topic is the anti-inflammatory lifestyle. There's a lot of information out there about the anti-inflammatory diet or anti-inflammatory lifestyle. There are also a lot of opinions out there, and there's not a consensus. This is not a cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all approach. It is definitely in the process of being explored. So what I've done is taken a lot of the information that's out there from different authority figures and just brought it together in a brief synopsis for you tonight. My hope would be that for you, this would be the beginning of your own process of exploration. Maybe a springboard for you to do your own research and discover what works best for you, what may be working currently in your diet and your lifestyle, and what may benefit from some of the support that we're going to be talking about tonight. So, anti-inflammatory lifestyle is our topic. Before we jump in, I want to talk a little bit about inflammation and just what is inflammation. So inflammation is a normal, healthy response of the immune system when you have something like an injury, a trauma, an infection, or an appropriate allergic response. Okay, that's when inflammation is something that should happen. It's our body's way of taking care and protecting us. Now, where a problem comes in is when that inflammatory process fails to get shut off. Okay, the infection has healed, the wound has been healed, and the inflammatory process continues. In a typical healthy scenario, when the healing has taken place, there are natural anti-inflammatory compounds in our bodies that step in to shut off that inflammatory response. When that doesn't happen, we end up with something called chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation means that we have inflammation taking place in our bodies that's no longer an appropriate response. There is a blood test that you can have done to see whether you're suffering from chronic inflammation. It is called C-reactive protein. You can go to your primary doctor and have a blood test run if you choose to do that. There's a lot of information that we can look to in terms of signs and symptoms that will give us pretty good indicators as to whether inflammation is proving to be an issue for you. We know that there are a multitude of factors that play into chronic inflammation. Some of them would be things like a poor diet, poor nutritional choices and not giving your body what it needs, excessive stress, and even more so when it's excessive stress over a long period of time, so chronic excessive stress. Hidden food and environmental allergies, chronic or subclinical infections. Now, a subclinical infection is an infection that's taking place beneath the surface and you don't even know it's there. Another factor would be molds, and then environmental toxins. Environmental toxins we're all exposed to at different times. So these would be things in the air, toxins in the air that we breathe. Our waterways are polluted, so we know that some of the fish that we ingest has mercury in it. Mercury is a heavy metal, it's a toxin, it's a poison in our body. Vaccines often contain, or definitely in the past have contained mercury. Other environmental toxins would be things in the household like off-gassing from carpets, mattresses, some furniture, or even the paint that we put on our walls, cleaning supplies that we use around the house. These are all things that are considered to be environmental toxins. Another common one that most of us are exposed to at some point or another is cigarette smoke. Cigarette smoke is considered to be an environmental toxin, including secondhand cigarette smoke. So if you live or work with someone who is a smoker, you want to make sure that they do that far removed from you so that you're not being exposed. There's also genetic predisposition, which we're not going to go into here, but I will say that some of the more forward-thinking, some of the more progressive researchers today are looking at genetic predisposition and realizing that whatever gene you have, whatever gene marker you have, lifestyle choices have a big impact on whether that gene ever gets to express itself or not, so whether it ever gets turned on. So we're going to concentrate and focus tonight on lifestyle choices because that is something that we do have control over. So that's a list of some things that have been identified to play into the inflammatory process. There are probably many more that aren't on this list and more that have not yet been identified as well. Now, it's theorized that this is how it plays out, how we go from an appropriate inflammatory response to a chronic inflammatory or an inappropriate inflammatory response. Let's say that you have a pretty healthy diet. Your stress level's not too high, and the stress that you do have you manage pretty well, and then you get hit with an infection. Chances are, because you take pretty good care of yourself, your immune system is going to be pretty strong and healthy and will deal appropriately with the infection. When the infection is gone, inflammation goes away. Now, consider this. If you have a lousy diet and you're not giving your body what it needs, and you have high levels of stress that aren't being managed well, and let's say you're exposed to an environmental toxin, and then you get hit with an infection, you think your body might be a little bit more susceptible at that point? So that's what's theorized, is that it's some combination of factors that are going to be different from person to person that come together to set the stage that allows that inflammatory process to continue. Inflammation can show up in any part of the body, any organ system, any tissue, any joint. Any part of your body can be affected by inflammation. And as a matter of fact, most disease processes in the body, if not all, have inflammation as a component. So inflammation is involved in most, if not all, disease processes that take place in the body. Some of the conditions that inflammation is definitively involved with would be things like heart disease. We'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. Osteoporosis, Alzheimer's disease, all the inflammatory arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, other autoimmune disorders like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, cancer, psoriasis, asthma, allergies, other skin conditions, joint pain, and the list goes on. These are all illnesses or diseases that inflammation plays a role in. Now, you can look at this list and maybe identify something about yourself or someone that you love based on those things that we just mentioned. In that case, the anti-inflammatory lifestyle is definitely something that will be beneficial for you. If you heard that list and nothing in there applies to you, you don't have any of those diagnosed conditions, any of those symptoms, the anti-inflammatory lifestyle can still benefit you, and this is why. In a chiropractic model, we're always trying to be proactive, meaning that if you take positive steps now, you may be preventing one of these illnesses that would otherwise show up down the road, okay? So if we can make changes in our current day lifestyle choices that are going to allow us to be healthier and more vibrant individuals 5 and 10 and 20 years from now, that's the choice we want to make. So that's what this is about. The anti-inflammatory lifestyle is not going to hurt anybody. It's not bad for anybody. It can only do you well. It can only benefit you. So some different factors to consider. We'll talk about some of these tonight, but we won't get to all of them. Healthy nervous system, dietary choices, identifying food allergies, nutritional supplementation, exercise, the relaxation response, which has to do with stress management, and then identifying and eliminating environmental toxins. So we're going to jump in and start by talking about a healthy nervous system. The nervous system and the immune system function almost as one system. They're so interrelated and interconnected. The nervous system, as you know by now, those of you who are patients of ours, the nervous system is responsible for controlling and coordinating the functions of every other system. So in order for all of your bodily systems to function as they should, you need to have a strong, healthy nervous system free of interference from subluxations. One of the handouts that you'll be taking with you tonight is several different studies about the impact of chiropractic care on things like immune response, DNA repair activity. And the common denominator in all of these studies is that the people that showed the best response had consistency with their care, and the care was rendered over a period of time, anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, depending on the study. So in other words, this is not the hit or miss adjustment. This is the consistent chiropractic care and the benefits thereof. So that's the nervous system role in whole body health. The next big thing that we're going to launch into is what you put into your body. This is a big part of the anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And the reason for this is that I said earlier that inflammation is an immune response. It's a normal, healthy immune response. Now, most of your immune cells lie in your gut. Okay? When I say gut, I'm referring primarily to the small and large intestines, where your food gets processed after it goes out of your stomach. So most of the immune cells, 70% of your immune cells, are lining your gut. The reason for this is that most of the foreign microorganisms, things that don't belong, that get into your body, come in by way of your mouth. Okay? So most of the cells that are going to respond to these foreign organisms need to be in your gut so they can step up to the plate when they're needed. An aspect of that immune response is the bacteria, the healthy bacteria, the good bacteria that we have in the gut. Most of you are probably familiar with that by now. It's a pretty commonly known, commonly understood process in the body. So we need a lot of good healthy bacteria here to offset the bad bacteria, the stuff that we don't want there. Now, your good bacteria can be upset by many different things: dietary choices, stress level management, water intake, and then things like antibiotics. When you take antibiotics, the antibiotics kill off the bad bacteria. Well, guess what? They also kill off the good stuff. So these types of things can upset that balance in the gut, which means that your immune response is thus thrown off balance. It's estimated in the gut that you have, the average adult human has 20 trillion of these good bacteria or healthy bacteria that are responsible for maintaining balance in the body. 20 trillion. If we took them all out and gathered them up and weighed them, they'd weigh over 2 pounds. All right? So those healthy bacteria, along with the other components of the immune system, line the gut and make sure that your body responds appropriately to what passes through. That's why diet is such a big factor in an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. So we're going to start this by talking about what are the best foods for their anti-inflammatory processes. At the top of the list are fresh fruits and vegetables, eaten either raw or very lightly cooked. When you choose your fruits and vegetables, the more vibrantly colored produce that you choose, the more nutrient-rich, antioxidant-rich those foods are going to be. So blueberries, sweet potatoes, red, yellow, and orange bell peppers. Think color. When you sit down to eat, try to have as many different colors on your plate as you can. You want to have some fruit or vegetable at every single meal, okay? Throughout the day, you want to be eating them. You want to buy organic where possible. There's going to be a resource at the end of the workshop, one of the handouts that you take home. Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, has a dirty dozen list of the worst produce to buy non-organic. So if you're limited in your organic food choices due to budget or availability, these are the top 12 foods that you want to really look for in the organic section. So fruits and vegetables, brightly colored, raw or close to it. Organic where possible. The second thing on my list is seafood, and I have seafood here because certain types of seafood are high in the omega-3 essential fatty acids, which is a big factor in whether your body is expressing inflammation or not. So the seafoods that we know are highest in those omega-3s would be your fatty fish, things like salmon and tuna, shellfish, mackerel. You want to look for wild caught, okay, farm-raised Fish are a different story. There is information that you need to know about your seafood choices as well. This is not the place to go into it, but that same website, EWG Environmental Working Group, tells you everything you need to know about mercury levels in different fish, as well as which ones are being overfished at this time, and just good choices for your fish. So incorporating some type of seafood into your diet, 2 servings a week, is the best way to get the omega-3s that you need and could benefit from. Now, here's where some differing opinions come in. Some authorities think that eating lean white meats from grass-fed animals is supportive of an anti-inflammatory diet. Some people think no meat is better. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Do your own research, explore that through your own dietary choices. Definitely the lean white meats would be the anti-inflammatory. Red meats, beef and pork, and yes, pork is red meat, it is not the other white meat, that's a marketing ploy. Beef and pork are pretty commonly known to have more inflammatory properties about them. Another thing to know about your meat, as far as your food choices, would be if you can find grass-fed meat, then you're going to be better off. It's possible that the grains that animals eat on these lots, feed lots that they're on, they're eating grains. That's not what they would be eating in nature, and it may be causing some inflammatory responses in those who ingest them. So lean white meats, ideally grass-fed, and again, ideally from an organic source. The next thing on my list would be non-glutinous grains. Again, this is something that's up for debate right now. Andrew Weil, who I think is an excellent resource, he's a Harvard-educated medical doctor, has definitely chosen a holistic path, and his food pyramid for anti-inflammatory diet, whole grains are on there. Other people say that's the first thing you need to avoid, so you're going to have to do your own research and explanation there. I am of the mind that gluten is the second most common food allergen. There was a study that was done, 200 disease-free people were tested, 15% were gluten sensitive or gluten allergic. So that suggests that as much as 15% of the population, whether they know it or not, are sensitive to gluten. So it's probably something that's worth eliminating from your diet for a period of time, and after 2 or 3 months, seeing if you can reincorporate it, see how your body does. Those would be the main things. Now, non-glutinous grains are things like quinoa, millet, brown rice. Another resource that I'm going to share with you is from a celiac disease website, and it has a very comprehensive list of non-glutinous grains, and showing you which are glutinous and which are not, so you can look at all of the multitude of choices that you have there. There are a lot of herbs that are known to have anti-inflammatory properties. Many of these are similar to over-the-counter and prescription non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and what they do is they prevent these inflammatory compounds from being produced in our bodies. So those herbs would be things like turmeric, oregano, garlic, ginger, curry. So just, load your meals up with those herbs. And then your teas, especially green and white tea, are known to have anti-inflammatory properties. So those are, that's a pretty comprehensive list of the foods that you can eat freely on an anti-inflammatory diet. The last thing on my list is water. Lots and lots of fresh, clean water. If you think about drinking water as bathing your body from the inside, it's really an important part of the detoxing process and curing wastes away. Okay, so we've covered all the things that you can eat on an anti-inflammatory diet. We're going to follow that up with things that you're better off avoiding, okay? Top of this list is going to be trans fats. Just about any resource that you turn to in terms of an anti-inflammatory diet or lifestyle, trans fat is at the top of the list of things to avoid. You may or may not know, trans fats are man-made fats, and they were designed or produced primarily to extend shelf life. Okay, but also trans fats can be reused over and over, and they break down very gradually. So trans fats are found in baked goods. If you walk into your bakery, probably most of what you see there is going to have trans fats in. Now, fortunately, food producers are required to label trans fats. So if you look on the label, you'll see whether there are trans fats and how much. If there's a small percentage, I think it's less than 0.5%, it doesn't have to go on the label, but other than that it does. So you can just look at the label and see. Baked goods, margarine, most commercially produced cookies, cakes, crackers. So just check the labels. Trans fats appear to damage the lining of your blood vessels, okay, which leads to an inflammatory response to that injury or that trauma. Second on my list is the glutinous grains. Now again, do your own research. This is open to debate at this point, but I had to throw it in there. Glutinous grains are thought to be pro-inflammatory, and they show up in everything from bread to pasta to crackers to cookies to pretzels. Now I will say that you have lots of gluten-free options, many more options available today than 5 or 10 years ago. And our new Publix up here on Atlantic, there's a whole aisle of gluten-free products. You can get bread, cookies, crackers, pasta. Okay, so lots of gluten-free options available for you. Those are the two main things to avoid. Below that, I have sugars and refined carbohydrates. Sugar actually reacts with protein to produce these pro-inflammatory compounds in the body. So sugar and refined carbohydrates would be things like, again, your white flour products, and then the refined sugar products, cookies and treats, and corn syrup, including high fructose corn syrup, sweetened drinks, and then processed food as often contains a lot of sugar and or refined carbohydrates. Next on the list I have packaged and processed foods. I think that's pretty obvious in terms of trans fats, additives, artificial contents and such. The last things here on my list are alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, drugs, marijuana. Those all either stimulate or depress the nervous system and the immune system and wreak havoc on both systems. Now alcohol, of course, we've all heard that a glass or two of red wine a night is fine, but anything beyond that is really not serving your best interests. All right, so now you know how to eat, things to avoid. We're going to talk about nutritional supplementation. Now there was a time when if we ate correctly, we probably could have all of our nutritional needs met from the foods that we took in. That's probably not true in this day and age. There are studies that have been done recently comparing the nutritional content of foods today with those same foods in the 1970s and early 80s, and some foods have lost as much as 50% of their nutritional value. I know broccoli was one of them. So what that means is that in order to get the same today, the same nutrients out of broccoli today that we got in the 1970s, we literally have to eat twice as much. And this is probably true across our food spectrum. So a solution to that is to eat really well, take in the best food that you can, and add in a multivitamin and multimineral. This is what you need to know about that. You never want to take a multivitamin or multimineral that you take once a day. Okay? That's like eating one big meal a day and expecting it to meet all of your nutritional needs. So we take vitamins the same way that we take in our food 3 or 4 times a day. You should have those nutrients circulating through your body. The other thing to know about a multivitamin, multimineral is that you want one that's age and gender specific. So one that's for men or for women and in your age range. We carry a line of products. It's Thorne products. They have excellent multivitamins for men and women, and we can go over those with you another time. Second on my list, essential fatty acids. Now, if you're making a point of taking in your 2 servings of fish a week, you're getting some omega-3s from flaxseed or nuts, you may not need to supplement. But if there's any shortage in your diet, in your dietary intake, then supplementing is a good idea. Essential fatty acids are known to affect many different bodily processes, but at the top of the list is inflammation. It's recommended that you take 1 to 3 grams a day. And again, you want to make sure you're getting a clean source because all of our fish out there is not clean. We know that it has mercury and lots of other things in it, so make sure that your source is clean. We have a good product here again from Thorne that we carry and can make available to you. Anti-inflammatory herbs. I've already mentioned a few that you can include in your diet. Boswellia is another one, ginger, turmeric, or curcumin. Thorne makes a product called phytoprofen, which is a combination of different herbs for inflammation. So if you have known inflammation, if you have any of those conditions that I mentioned earlier, adding phytoprofen to your nutritional supplementation regimen would be a good idea for you. Glucosamine sulfate and chondroitin, this would be appropriate specifically for people who are having inflammation showing up in particular joints in their body. Glucosamine is known to support the body in regenerating cartilage, so it actually increases the health of the joint. The Thorne product that we carry, ARN cap, has glucosamine, chondroitin, and it also has those anti-inflammatory herbs. So while the joints are getting healthier, you also have the herbs helping them feel better. That one's called ARN cap. Next two things on my list of nutritional supplements, vitamin C for its obvious and well-established immune support, and vitamin D, which just in recent years we're realizing that many of us are deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is a huge source of support for your immune system. The best source of vitamin D is what? Sunlight, okay? The best way to get all of your vitamin D needs met is to expose yourself to sun. All you need is 15 minutes a day. You want as much exposure as possible and no sunscreen, okay? Probably one of the reasons that we're becoming D deficient is that we slather sunscreen on ourselves every time we set foot outside the door. So 15 minutes, no sunscreen, skin exposed. If you're really, really reluctant to do that, or you don't have the opportunity, then you can take a vitamin D supplement. You want to take vitamin D3. General consensus is that for the average adult, about 5,000 IUs is appropriate. You can also have your blood tested for vitamin D3 to see where your levels are and whether that's an appropriate level of support for you. CoQ10 is on most lists of supplementation for inflammation, and the reason is that it's a very powerful antioxidant, very powerful support of your immune response, immune system. And the last thing I have on here is probiotics. So we talked about healthy gut bacteria. That's what probiotics are. They really ramp up those 20 trillion cells in your intestines that are immune supportive cells. So probiotics would be an obvious thing to add to your nutritional supplement regimen, especially if you're dealing with anti-inflammatory issues. The next few things here I'm not going to delve into. We do have upcoming workshops scheduled that will cover all of these, so you're welcome to look at the workshop schedule to see where these might show up. I have detoxification, elimination diet, and or identifying food allergies. So a detox is good for everybody to do about once a year, but it's also, if you're going to step into a new way of eating, eliminating some foods, it's a great way to start. We have a program that we do here in our office. It's also a Thorne product called Mediclear. I'm not going to go into details. We'll talk about that later if you'd like, but it's a gentle liver detox. In conjunction with that, you can do a 3-week elimination diet to see if you're sensitive to any of the 9 most common food allergens. If you want to take it to another level, you can have a blood test done, and we can facilitate that here from our office to have anywhere from 125 to 200 different common food allergens tested to see specifically what do you need to be eliminating from your diet. So any questions about that, Dr. Alterman or I will be happy to answer for you at another time. Exercise. Exercise, moving your body, is known to support the detox process. It's known to support your joints and your tissues being healthy. All it takes is 20 to 30 minutes a day of 20 to 30 minutes 3 to 4 times a week, and again, done consistently over the course of time. We will have a workshop that goes a little more in detail on exercise if you would like to attend that workshop. And the last thing I have here is the relaxation response. The relaxation response is a very specific tool that can be used to offset the way that stress affects our bodies. So it literally short circuits the stress response. Very effective ways of doing that would be intentional diaphragmatic breathing, yoga, meditation, qigong, tai chi, guided visualization. Those are all well studied, well established. Again, we have a workshop, optimal stress management for vibrant health, that will be on the schedule later this year, and you're welcome to sign up for that. I will be sending handouts with resources for you. And I just would like to say in closing, thank you for being here. Thank you for your participation. Dr. Alterman and I love nothing more than taking this information out into the community. A lot of the information that we share in these workshops, not everybody has access to, and we feel like there's valid information here for everybody. If you're involved in any organized group, it might be a church, a civic organization, a mom's group, your place of employment, that any of these workshops feel like a good fit, please talk to us and see if there's something that we can offer in support of that, because we really would enjoy bringing this out into the community. For those of you who are guests, again, we welcome you. Thank you for being here. We would like to extend a gift to you for participating in tonight's workshop. If you would like to get with us after the workshop, we're happy to offer you a complimentary evaluation if we get that scheduled within the next 7 days. All right, thank you again.